Imagine living in a time where the smallest crime could lead to a punishment so brutal that entire towns gathered just to watch. In medieval times, justice was not always about fairness. Instead, it was about fear. Rulers believed that if punishments were harsh enough, people would think twice before committing crimes. As a result, medieval punishments were often designed to humiliate, torture, and sometimes kill criminals in the most terrifying ways possible. Some punishments lasted for days, while others left victims permanently injured. Today, many of these punishments seem unimaginable. But during the medieval period, they were considered normal. One of the most common punishments was known as the stocks. The stocks were a simple wooden device with holes for the head and hands. A criminal would be locked into this device and placed in the middle of a town square. At first glance, this might not sound too terrible, but the real punishment came from the crowd. People passing by would insult the prisoner, throw rotten vegetables, and sometimes even spit on them. The prisoner could be left there for hours or even days, unable to move. For many people, the humiliation was worse than the physical discomfort. But public humiliation was only the beginning. Some punishments were designed to cause extreme pain. One of the most feared torture devices was the rack. The rack was a wooden frame with rollers at both ends. The victim's wrists and ankles were tied to the machine, and as the rollers were turned, the victim's body would slowly stretch. At first, the stretching caused intense pain. But as the machine continued to turn, the victim's joints would begin to separate. Sometimes shoulders or knees would dislocate. In the worst cases, the stretching could tear muscles and ligaments apart. The rack was often used to force prisoners to confess to crimes or reveal secrets. Another terrifying punishment was burning at the stake. This was often used for people accused of serious crimes, such as heresy or witchcraft. The condemned person would be tied to a wooden pole surrounded by firewood. Once the fire was lit, the flames slowly grew around them. These executions were public events. Large crowds gathered to watch, and the sight of the flames served as a warning to anyone who might challenge the law or the church. However, some punishments were even more mysterious and terrifying. One of the most famous devices associated with medieval torture is the Iron Maiden. The Iron Maiden was shaped like a tall metal coffin. Inside the door were sharp spikes positioned so that when the door closed, the spikes would pierce the victim's body without instantly killing them. The victim would remain trapped inside, injured and helpless. Historians still debate how often the Iron Maiden was actually used, but the idea of such a device has become a symbol of the cruelty of medieval justice. Looking back today, it is hard to imagine living in a world where punishments like these were common. Modern justice systems focus more on fairness and human rights.